Lightning split the dark sky like angry fingers reaching down from heaven. The storm had come from nowhere, turning what should have been a routine flight from New York to London into a nightmare of turbulence and terror. Adrian Blackstone gripped the leather armrest of his private jet, watching through the small window as rain lashed against the glass with violent intensity. "Sir, we need to make an emergency landing." His pilot's voice crackled through the intercom, barely audible over the roar of thunder. "There's a small airfield about 20 miles ahead." Adrian closed his eyes and took a deep breath. At 32, he had built a technology empire worth billions, but all his money and power meant nothing against the raw fury of nature. The plane shuddered violently, and he could hear the engines struggling against the wind. The landing was rough, too rough. The aircraft skidded across the wet runway, its wheels fighting for grip on the slick surface. Adrian felt the world spinning around him as the plane veered off course, sliding through mud and grass before finally coming to rest against a cluster of pine trees. Silence fell like a heavy blanket, broken only by the steady drumming of rain on metal. Adrian's head throbbed, and when he touched his forehead, his fingers came away sticky with blood. The pilot was unconscious, slumped forward in his seat. Adrian tried his phone, but there was no signal in this remote area. He forced open the emergency exit and stepped out into the storm. The rain immediately soaked through his expensive suit, and the wind nearly knocked him off his feet. He had no idea where he was, only that he needed to find help before the pilot's condition worsened. A light in the darkness through the curtain of rain. Adrian saw a faint glow in the distance. Fighting against the storm, he made his way toward the light, stumbling over rocks and fallen branches. His legs felt weak, and his vision kept blurring, but he pressed on. The light grew brighter, revealing itself to be a small cottage nestled among tall trees. The cottage looked like something from a fairy tale, with stone walls covered in ivy and warm yellow light spilling from its windows. Adrian pounded on the heavy wooden door, his strength nearly gone. The door opened to reveal a young woman with long auburn hair and the most beautiful green eyes he had ever seen. She wore a simple white sweater and jeans, paint stains on her fingers suggesting she was an artist. Her eyes widened when she saw him, taking in his bloody forehead and soaked appearance. "Please," Adrian gasped, swaying on his feet. "I need help. My plane crashed." Without hesitation, the woman reached out and supported him. "Come in quickly, you're hurt." She guided him into the warm cottage, and Adrian felt his knees buckle. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was her concerned face leaning over him, her green eyes filled with kindness. Awakening to a new world, Adrian woke to the sound of crackling fire and the gentle touch of a cool cloth on his forehead. He was lying on a comfortable couch, covered with a soft blanket that smelled like lavender. The cottage was cozy and inviting, filled with paintings that captured the beauty of the surrounding countryside. "You're awake," said a soft voice. A woman from the door sat in a chair nearby, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug. "I was starting to worry." Adrian tried to sit up, wincing as pain shot through his head. "How long was I unconscious?" "About 3 hours. I cleaned your wound and bandaged it. You have a concussion, but nothing too serious." She set down her mug and moved closer. "I'm Rosalie Harper. What's your name?" For a moment, Adrian hesitated. His name was known around the world, associated with wealth and power that this simple, kind woman might not understand. Something about this place, about her, made him want to be just a man, not a billionaire. "Adrian," he said simply. "Adrian." Rosalie smiled, and it was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "Well, just Adrian, you're lucky to be alive. I found your pilot, too. He's at the local clinic, and the doctor says he'll be fine." "Thank you," Adrian said, meaning it more than he had ever meant anything. "I don't know how to repay you." "Don't need to repay kindness," Rosalie replied. "That's not how it works." Two worlds collide over the next few days. As Adrian recovered, he discovered a world he had never known existed. Rosalie lived simply but richly, finding joy in small things, like morning coffee, afternoon painting sessions, and evening walks despite the lingering storms. She created beautiful landscapes that captured not just the appearance of nature, but its very soul. "You have real talent," Adrian said. studying one of her paintings. It showed the cottage during a sunset, with golden light making everything glow with warmth. Rosalie blushed. "It's just a hobby. I work part-time at the local library to pay the bills." Adrian found this refreshing. In his world, everyone wanted something from him, but Rosalie seemed content with her life. She asked him about his work, and he told her he was in business, keeping the details vague. She didn't press for more information, which was another new experience for him. They spent hours talking by the fire. Adrian learned that Rosalie had inherited the cottage from her grandmother, that she loved to read classic novels, and that she had never traveled far from this small town. In return, he shared stories from his travels, carefully edited to remove references to private jets and five-star hotels.
Ah,
"Have you ever been to Paris?"
yes.
Rosalie asked one evening, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Once or twice," Adrian said, remembering. "His penthouse apartment overlooking the Seine. It's beautiful, but I think I prefer it here." And surprisingly, he meant it. The peace of this place, the genuine warmth of Rosalie's company, was something his billions had never been able to buy. The growing connection as the days passed. Adrian found himself falling for Rosalie in a way he had never experienced before. She was genuine, kind, and saw beauty in everything around her. When she laughed, it was like music. When she concentrated on her painting, her face took on an expression of pure concentration that he found captivating. They took walks together. Through the woods surrounding the cottage, even in the light rain that seemed constant in this region, Rosalie showed him hidden waterfalls and secret meadows, places she had discovered during years of exploration. "This is my favorite spot," she said one afternoon, leading him to a clearing where wildflowers grew in colorful abundance. "Come here when I need to think." Adrian looked around at the natural beauty, then at Rosalie. "I can see why. It's perfect." They sat on a fallen log, watching clouds drift across the sky. Adrian felt more relaxed than he had in years. No business meetings, no stock reports, no endless demands on his time and attention. "Tell me about your family," Rosalie said. Adrian's expression darkened slightly. "My parents died when I was young. I have a sister, but we don't get along well. She thinks I'm too serious, too focused on work." "Are you?" Rosalie asked gently. Adrian considered this. "I used to think work was the most important thing. Now I'm not so sure." Rosalie reached over and took his hand. The simple gesture sent electricity through Adrian's entire body. "Sometimes the storm brings us exactly where we need to be," she said softly. Secrets and growing love that evening. They cooked dinner together in Rosalie's small but efficient kitchen. Adrian had never cooked a meal in his life, but Rosalie patiently taught him how to prepare fresh vegetables and tend the sauce. They laughed as he accidentally added too much salt, and she showed him how to correct the mistake. "You're a quick learner," she said. Standing close beside him at the stove, Adrian turned to face her, suddenly very aware of how near she was. Her green eyes looked up at him, and he could see his own feelings reflected there. Without thinking, he reached up and gently touched her cheek. "Rosalie," he whispered. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed. The moment stretched between them, full of possibility and promise. But then Adrian's phone rang, jarring them both back to reality. He had finally managed to get a signal that morning and had called his assistant to arrange transportation. The caller ID showed his company's number. "I should take this," he said reluctantly. "Of course," Rosalie said, stepping back and busying herself with the cooking. Adrian stepped outside to take the call. It was David Chen, his most trusted assistant. "Mr. Blackstone, thank God you're all right. The whole company has been worried sick. Your sister has been demanding to know where you are." "I'm fine, David. How's the pilot? Recovering well?" "Sir, there are some urgent matters that need your attention. The Henderson deal is falling apart, and the board is asking questions about your absence." Adrian looked back through the kitchen window at Rosalie, who was humming softly as she stirred the sauce. For the first time in his life, business seemed unimportant. "Give me another few days, David. Handle what you can." "Sir, your sister says if you don't return immediately, she's going to start looking for you herself." Adrian's jaw tightened. Alina had always been jealous of his success and would love nothing more than to disrupt whatever happiness he had found. Don't. Tell her where I am, Adrian said firmly. That's an order. After ending the call, Adrian stood in the gentle rain, torn between two worlds. Inside the cottage, Rosalie represented everything good and pure and real. Outside, his empire waited. Along with all the complications his wealth and power brought, he made his choice and went back inside. Everything all right? Rosalie asked, not looking up from her cooking. Perfect, Adrian said, and for the first time in years, he meant it completely. They ate dinner by candlelight, talking and laughing as if they had known each other for years. Instead of days, Adrian told her stories about his travels, and Rosalie shared her dreams of someday having her own art gallery. What's stopping you? Adrian asked. Rosalie shrugged. It's money mostly, and fear, I suppose. What if my work isn't good? Enough. Your work is extraordinary, Adrian said with conviction. Anyone would be lucky to display it. As they cleaned up together, Adrian realized he had never been happier. This simple life, this wonderful woman, was worth more than all his wealth. But he also knew that his real world would come looking for him soon, and when it did, everything would change. That night, as he lay on the couch listening to the rain on the roof, Adrian made a decision. Tomorrow, he would tell Rosalie the truth about who he was. He would risk losing her to be honest with her. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. The morning sun streamed through the cottage windows, casting golden patterns across the wooden floor. Adrian woke to the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of Rosalie humming in the kitchen. For a moment, he allowed himself to believe this could be his life forever. Peaceful mornings with the woman who had captured his heart. Good morning, Rosalie called out, appearing in the doorway with 2 steaming mugs. I thought we could take a walk to the village today. There's a farmer's market, and I'd love to show you around. Adrian smiled, accepting the coffee gratefully. That sounds perfect. But as they prepared to leave, a black sedan pulled up outside the cottage. Adrian's blood ran cold as he recognized the car. Through the window, he watched his sister Alina step out, her designer heels clicking on the stone path. She wore a black business suit that made her look like she was attending a funeral, and her expression was equally grim. Stay inside, Adrian told Rosalie quickly. Please, just trust me. Confusion flickered across Rosalie's face, but she nodded. Stepped outside, closing the door firmly behind him. Lena, he said coldly. What are you doing here? His sister smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Looking for my missing brother, of course. When you disappeared, I was worried sick. Her eyes swept over the cottage dismissively. Though I see you've been quite comfortable, how did you find me? I have resources, Adrian. The question is, what are you doing hiding in this place when your company needs you? Lena's voice dropped to a threatening whisper. Do you have any idea what your absence has cost us? The Henderson deal collapsed. 3 major investors pulled out. The board is starting to ask if you're mentally stable. Adrian clenched his fists. I've been in contact with David. Everything is under control. Under control? Lena laughed harshly. You disappear for a week to play house with some country girl, and you think that's under control? What would mother and father think? Don't. Adrian's voice was dangerous. Don't you dare bring them into this. Lena stepped closer, her eyes glittering with malice. Come home, Adrian, now, before you destroy everything we've built. What we've built. Adrian's anger flared. I built that company. You just inherited shares, and I won't let you throw it all away for some romantic fantasy. Alina glanced toward the cottage windows. Bring your little friend if you must, but this ends today. No, Adrian said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. Elena's smile turned predatory. We'll see about that. The truth revealed after Alina left. Adrian returned to the cottage to find Rosalie waiting with worried eyes. She had clearly heard raised voices, though not the specific words. Who was that woman? Rosalie asked gently. Adrian ran his hands through his hair, knowing the moment of truth had arrived. That was my sister, Rosalie. I need to tell you something. I haven't been completely honest with you. Rosalie's face grew pale, but she gestured for him to sit beside her on the couch. "Tell me, my full name is Adrian Blackstone. I'm the CEO of Blackstone Technologies, company's worth about $15 billion. The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Rosalie stared at him, processing this information. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet and hurt. $15 billion? Yes. You let me cook for you, worry about you while you're one of the richest men in the world? Adrian reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Rosalie, please understand. When I woke up here, I was just a man who had been in an accident. You treated me with such kindness, such genuine care. I've never experienced anything like that before, because you lied to me, Rosalie said, standing up and walking to the window. Let me believe you were someone you're not, the man who's been here with you, who's laughed with you, who's fallen in love with you. That's exactly who I am, Adrian said desperately. The money doesn't change that. Rosalie turned back to him, tears glistening in her eyes. Doesn't it? You're Adrian Blackstone? I've seen your picture in magazines. You date supermodels and buy companies like other people buy groceries. What could you possibly want with someone like me? I want everything with you, Adrian said, standing and moving toward her. I want to wake up every morning to your smile. I want to learn more about painting and help you open that gallery. I want to build a life that means something. A life built on lies? The words hit Adrian like a physical blow. It wasn't lies. Everything I told you about how I feel, about who I want to be, that was the truth. Rosalie wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I need time to think. I need you to go, Rosalie. Please. Go, Adrian. Please. With a heart heavier than he had ever felt, Adrian gathered his few belongings and walked out of the cottage that had become paradise to him. The brothers' protection later that afternoon. As Rosalie sat alone in her cottage trying to process everything that had happened, there was another knock at her door. She opened it to find a man in his late 20s. With the same auburn hair and green eyes she saw in the mirror every day. James, she said, falling into her brother's arms. James Harper was a mechanic in town, practical and protective of his younger sister. He held her as she cried, then guided her to the couch. I heard there was some rich guy bothering you, James, said, his jaw tight with anger. He saw the fancy car and the woman in the expensive suit. It's complicated, James, is it? Because from where I sit, it looks like some billionaire played with your feelings, and now he's gone back to his real life. Rosalie told her brother everything, from finding Adrian in the storm to learning his true identity. James listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. He lied to you from the beginning, James said, when she finished. These rich people, they think regular folks like us are just entertainment. But he seemed so genuine, Rosalie whispered. When he looked at me, when he talked about his dreams, it felt real. Maybe to him, it was a fun vacation from his real life. But what happens when the novelty wears off? You think he's going to give up billions of dollars to live in this cottage with you? James's words echoed the doubts that had been growing in Rosalie's mind since Elena's visit. The two worlds were too different. Adrian would eventually return to his life of power and privilege, and she would just be a memory of a strange week in the countryside. The corporate war, meanwhile. Adrian had returned to his penthouse in the city, but his heart remained in the cottage. He threw himself into work, trying to forget the pain in Rosalie's eyes when she asked him to leave. But every business decision felt meaningless compared to the simple joy of cooking dinner with her Elena. Wasted no time in capitalizing on his distraction. She called an emergency board meeting, presenting evidence of his erratic behavior and questionable judgment. My brother has clearly been under tremendous stress, she told the assembled executives. His recent disappearance and this inappropriate relationship show that he needs time to recover. I propose we temporarily transfer his voting shares to a trust managed by the board. David Chen, Adrian's loyal assistant, tried to defend him. Mr. Blackstone has always made sound business decisions. 1 week away doesn't constitute erratic behavior. 1 week pursuing a romantic fantasy while our stock price plummeted, Elena corrected sharply. The shareholders deserve leadership they can count on. The board was split, but Elena had been cultivating allies for months. The vote was close. but she managed to secure temporary control of Adrian's voting rights. When Adrian learned of Elena's betrayal, his fury was volcanic. But beneath the anger was a deeper realization. None of this mattered without Rosalie. Company, the money, the power. It all felt hollow without someone to share it with who truly understood him. The heart's choice back in the cottage. Rosalie found herself unable to concentrate on anything. Her paintings looked flat and lifeless. The books she loved seemed dull. Even her favorite walking paths through the woods felt empty without Adrian's presence. She kept remembering small moments. The way he had looked at her paintings was genuine. Appreciation, how he had listened to her dreams without judgment, the tenderness in his voice when he spoke about wanting to be a better man. James visited daily, bringing groceries and checking on her, but his constant criticism of Adrian only made her feel worse. "You're better off without him," James insisted one evening as they sat by the fire. "He would have broken your heart eventually anyway. What if he wouldn't have?" Rosalie asked quietly. "What if I let fear make the decision instead of my heart?" "Fear keeps you safe, does it? Or does it keep you from really living?" That night, alone in the cottage, Rosalie made a decision. She picked up her phone and dialed the number Adrian had given her for emergencies. David Chen answered on the second. "Ring. Mr. Blackstone's office. This is Rosalie Harper. I need to speak with Adrian." There was a pause. "Miss Harper, Mr. Blackstone is in a very important meeting. Please, tell him I called." "Tell him I want to talk. I'll give him the message immediately." When Adrian tried to call her back an hour later, Elena intercepted the call. She had been monitoring his communications, waiting for exactly this opportunity. "Miss Harper," Elena said smoothly. "This is Elena Blackstone, Adrian's sister. I understand. You called. I wanted to speak with Adrian. I'm afraid that's not possible. You see, Adrian is getting engaged tomorrow to Victoria Sterling, the daughter of Sterling Industries. It's a merger that's been in the works for months. I'm sure you understand that your little interlude was just a temporary distraction for him." The lie came so easily that Elena almost believed it herself, but it served her purpose perfectly. "Engaged." Rosalie's voice was barely a whisper. "Oh, yes. Victoria is much more suitable for someone in Adrian's position. I'm sure you can see that. Simple country girl like yourself. Well, it was never going to work out, was it?" Elena's words hit their target perfectly. After she hung up, Rosalie sat in the darkness of her cottage, feeling foolish and heartbroken. Of course, Adrian would marry someone from his own world. Of course, their time together had just been a temporary escape for him. She turned off her phone and unplugged it from the wall. Wanting no more painful revelations, Adrian paced his office like a caged lion, furious that Rosalie hadn't returned. His calls. David Chen watched his boss with growing concern. "Sir, perhaps you should go to her directly," David suggested. "She asked me to leave. I have to respect that." Adrian's voice was heavy with pain. "But God, David, I can't stop thinking about her. Nothing matters anymore. Have you considered that someone might be interfering with your communications?" Adrian stopped pacing. "What do you mean?" David pulled out his tablet. "I've been monitoring all calls to and from your personal line, as you requested for security purposes. Yesterday, there was a call from Miss Harper's number to your office, but according to the phone logs, you never received it. That's impossible, unless—" Adrian's face darkened as understanding dawned. "Elena," David nodded grimly. "I believe. Your sister intercepted the call?" Within minutes, Adrian had confronted Elena in her office. His sister sat behind her massive desk, looking completely composed despite being caught in her deception. "How could you?" Adrian's voice shook with rage. "How could you lie to her?" "I told her the truth," Elena said calmly.
"Oh."
"That you come from two different worlds, and it would never work out. I saved you both a lot of pain. You had no right. I had every right. As your sister and as a major shareholder in this company, I won't let you destroy everything for some romantic whim." Adrian leaned across her desk, his eyes burning with fury. "Listen to me very carefully, Elena. You will call Rosalie immediately and tell her the truth. You will explain that you lied and that there is no engagement to Victoria Sterling." Elena laughed coldly. "Victoria Sterling is here, by the way. She flew in from London when she heard about your little adventure. She's waiting in the conference room expecting a proposal. Then she's going to be disappointed. Adrian, think about what you're throwing away. Victoria is perfect for you. Beautiful, educated, from the right family. She understands our world." "I don't want someone who understands my world," Adrian said fiercely. "I want someone who makes me want to create a better world." The final confrontation before Elena could respond, the conference room doors burst open. Victoria Sterling swept. In her platinum blonde hair perfectly styled, her designer dress probably costing more than most people made in a year. She was undeniably beautiful, but her beauty was cold and calculated. "Adrian, darling," Victoria said, her British accent crisp and commanding. "I understand you've been having some sort of crisis, but don't worry, I'm here now to sort everything out." "Victoria," Adrian said wearily, "I didn't ask you to come. Of course you didn't. Men never know what's best for them." Victoria moved to him and placed a possessive hand on his arm. Lena explained everything. "You've been hiding out with some little nobody, feeling sorry for yourself, but that's over now. Her name is Rosalie, and she's not a nobody." Victoria's laugh was like breaking glass. "Really, Adrian? A poor artist from the countryside? Could you possibly have in common with someone like that? Everything that matters?" Victoria's expression hardened. "You're being ridiculous. We've been planning our marriage for 2 years. Our families have business arrangements that depend on this union. Then you'll have to find another way to merge your companies, because I'm not marrying you." Elena stepped forward. "Adrian, you're not thinking clearly. The board is already concerned about your judgment if you throw away a beneficial marriage for some peasant girl enough." Adrian's voice boomed through the office. "Rosalie Harper is worth more than both of you combined. She has kindness, integrity, and a pure heart. She sees the world with wonder and creates beauty everywhere she goes. I would rather live in a cottage with her than in a palace with either of you." Victoria's face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this, Adrian. When your little princess realizes what you've given up for her, when the novelty wears off and she sees how our world really works, she'll leave you. And when she does, don't come crawling back to me. I wouldn't dream of it." As Victoria stormed out, Elena made one last attempt. "This isn't over, Adrian. The board won't stand for this. Then I'll resign from the board. I'll sell my shares and start over. But I won't live my life according to your rules anymore." Adrian turned to David. "Prepare my resignation letter. Get me a car. I'm going to win back the woman I love." Race against time's a drive to Rosalie's cottage felt endless. Adrian's heart hammered against his ribs as he rehearsed what he would say. He had to make her understand that what they had was real, that he was willing to give up everything for her. But when he arrived at the cottage, it was dark and empty. A neighbor told him that Rosalie had left that morning with her brother, taking several suitcases. She had said something about needing to get away, to think clearly. Desperate, Adrian drove to the village and found James at his garage. The younger man looked up from the engine he was working on with undisguised hostility. "She doesn't want to see you," James said bluntly. "Please, just tell me where she is. I need to explain." "Explain what?" "How you lied to her. How you let your sister tell her you were getting married to some rich woman." Adrian's blood chilled. "Lena told her I was getting married yesterday. Broke my sister's heart." James stood up, wiping his hands on a rag. "Rosalie's gone somewhere you can't find her, and that's for the best. James, I love your sister. I want to marry her, not Victoria Sterling. Elena lied to both of us." For a moment, James's hostility wavered. "Even if that's true, what kind of life could you give her? She'd never fit into your world, and I'll leave my world behind. I'll build a new one with her." James studied Adrian's face for a long moment, seeing the genuine anguish there. Finally, he sighed. "She's at our aunt's cabin by the lake, about 50 miles north. But if you hurt her again, rich or not, I'll make you regret it." The storms and Adrian found the cabin just as the sun was setting, painting the lake in shades of gold and crimson. Rosalie sat on the dock, her feet dangling in the water, looking so beautiful and sad that it took his breath away. She looked up when she heard his footsteps, her eyes widening in surprise and something that might have been hope. "Adrian, how did you find me? Your brother told me where you were." He approached slowly, afraid she might run. "Rosalie, we need to talk." "Alina lied to you, I know," Rosalie said softly. "James called an hour ago," he said. "You told him there. Was no engagement that your sister made it up? Then you know I would never betray what we have." Rosalie stood up, her green eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset. "But that doesn't change the fundamental problem, does it? You're still Adrian Blackstone, and I'm still just a small-town girl who paints pictures?" Adrian stepped closer, his voice intense with emotion. "Do you know what I realized when I thought I had lost you? That none of it matters. The money, the company, the power. Without you, it's all meaningless. You can't just throw away your entire life. I'm not throwing it away. I'm choosing what matters most." Adrian reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Rosalie Harper, I know I don't deserve a second chance after lying to you, but I'm asking for one anyway." He dropped to one knee on the wooden dock, opening the box to reveal a simple but beautiful diamond ring. "I love you, not because you're impressed by my wealth, but because you couldn't care less about it. You love me for who I am, not what I have. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Rosalie's face as she looked at the man kneeling before her. "Adrian, are you sure? Your family, your business, they'll never accept me, and I'll build a new family with you. I've already resigned from the board of my company. We can start fresh together. You resigned this morning? I'd rather be poor with you than rich without you." "Oh, sure." Rosalie laughed through her tears, the sound like music across the water. "You beautiful fool. I don't need you to be poor. I just need you to be honest. Is that a yes?" "That's a yes." As Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger, the storm clouds that had been gathering all day finally released their burden. But this time, the rain felt like a blessing, washing away the pain and deception of the past week and leaving only love in its wake. The new beginning 6 months later. Adrian and Rosalie were married in a small ceremony at the cottage where they had first fallen in love. The guest list was small, but meaningful. James, David Chen, a few close friends from the village, and surprisingly, Adrian's elderly Aunt Margaret, who had flown in from Scotland to meet the woman who had captured her nephew's heart. Alina had not been invited. Though she had made several attempts to reconcile with Adrian when she realized he was serious about giving up his fortune. But Adrian had learned that some betrayals cut too deep to forgive. True to his word, Adrian had sold his shares in Blackstone Technologies, while he retained enough to ensure his employees were taken care of. With the proceeds, he and Rosalie opened a foundation that supported artists and art education in rural communities. They split their time between the cottage and a modest house in the city. Where Rosalie's first gallery show had been a stunning success, art critics praised her ability to capture not just the appearance of nature, but its very essence. "You were right," Adrian told her one evening, as they walked hand in hand through the woods behind the cottage. "The storm brought us exactly where we needed to be." Rosalie squeezed his hand, her wedding ring catching the last light of day. Sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most unexpected places. As they reached their favorite clearing, now dotted with spring wildflowers, Adrian pulled her close and kissed her softly. In the distance, thunder rumbled gently. But neither of them was afraid of storms anymore. They had learned that sometimes the tempest that threatens to destroy everything actually brings the greatest gift of all, true love that can weather any storm. "Are you sure you want this?" Adrian had asked her tenderly that first night, when he discovered her pure heart in the chaos of the storm. Now, 6 months later, as they stood in their special place with their whole lives ahead of them, Rosalie smiled up at the man who had given up an empire for her love. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," she whispered, and in the gentle rain that began to fall, they danced together, two hearts that had found their home in each other. proving that the greatest fortune of all is love freely given and gratefully received. The end.